And finally, we come to the last theme of this afternoon's seminar, which is leveraging on learned experiences and ideas for creative and innovative thinking in the Gambia's organizations. This topic will be presented by our very own Honorable Saliu Bojang. You are welcome to take the floor, Mr. Bojang.
Hello, Mr. Abdul Kadir. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
thank
we
you
can
so
hear you.
much. First, I will start by this, and I will end up with a thank you, and I will follow it with my presentation. To exist is not necessarily to be real. It's two different things. Something can exist, and it may not be real. There are organizations within our society existing, but they are not real. As well as there are human beings working within those systems, but they are not real. That was the time for us to examine our society as well as institutions and the people who work within those institutions. For what reason? Maybe three great reasons. I'll follow you back to what Adam Smith will call the division of labor. A very crucial point. A society divided into many different segments, each segment doing its part. Our national sports team, they are doing their part. The education sector, anyone within that sector can do their own part. Gambia Center for Research and Policy Study calls on all of those who are within this domain of love, knowledge, education to also do their part. It is on that note, I am thanking you for coming to moderate this program, as well as for GCRPS allowing us with this unbelievable platform for us to be on the sharing mode. An unbelievable panel. Division of labor maximizes productivity. Productivity also enhances and gives us this wealth. It is that wealth that will earn us good, the goodness of a society. That's why my topic of the day is looking at the experiences that have already been on the table, the ideas that have already been on the table, because we've passed the best of the best. Thinkers of our time coming to GCRPS platform and saying good things that needs to be exposed and be leveraged on to earn us something innovative and creative. That is my topic of the day. Falling back on past webinars, looking at them, what they've said, and then see how best we can be creative of those ideas as well as innovative of those ideas. That is the topic. And then I will take you to the table of contents. There are three parts here: the webinars, the coding tree, as well as the fishbone diagram. I try to framework to make it easy, because frameworks makes it easy, just as theories allows us to see the shortcut to success. On the webinar front, I'll be talking about the topics, the participants, and the results and the impacts. And the coding tree formulated, I'll look at the topic, the root codes, and the child codes. On the fishbone diagram, I'll look at the causes and the effects, as well as the strategies, but I will end with the reference. On the webinars, this is amazing. GCRPS conducted 6 webinars in total. One on mathematics, healthcare, on technology, on ethics and morality, national languages, and then on environment. A total participants of about 41. If you include ours, it will be 48. Each webinar average about maybe about 8 people, 7 to 8 people. Each of these webinars has experts from different disciplines of life, experiences, and from different cultures. The total number of webinars the duration period of each webinar is about, on average, is about 1 hour, 30 minutes. But then what GCRPS did was, each webinar series, they partition it into parts. So a total of 29 videos in total. So from these webinars, I decided to go on coding the webinars. It took a heck of a time to dig into coding. First, by looking at it, I'm examining each of the webinars. We're examining the Gambian society as well as its institutions. That is what they were embarking on, but from different areas, or looking the Gambia from different corners of, some are from the health, some are from technology, vis-a-vis. And then from the examination, the main codings that I arrived from, they were exposing the challenges, as well as they were exposing the behaviors, and as well as they were exposing the gaps. That's a fascinating one. And in the process, they were highlighting the solutions to each of the challenges, as well as the behaviors and the gaps identified. Those are the root codes to the examination of where they were prisming from. And if you looked at the end part, which is the child codes under the challenges, I try to identify as much as I can and corroborate their information. And under the challenges, you can see them saying unintegrated systems. Our systems are unintegrated. 2, lack of accountability. 3, increased informality. 4, inadequate or no structures. Unenforced rules and laws. Unaware or lack of knowledge. Those are the challenges they've exposed. Of all the 6 webinars, I corroborate all the different information, and these are the challenges identified of our system. And then you come to the behaviors. What are the areas identified? My way, your way. That's one behavior, or habits, or mindsets. 2, tardiness, lateness, untimeliness. 3, dishonest and corrupt, corruption and dishonesty. 4, inability to implement. That is another thing they've highlighted. These are not my things. I worked on the webinars, and these are the things that were unfolding. These are phrases. 2, the final one, do not care attitude. And then you come to the knowledge gaps. Upon identifying the challenges and the behaviors, they identified the knowledge gaps that exist. This is what it means is today and tomorrow in between. What is that gap that we need to look into? And hopefully something can emanate from that. 1, system integration plan. 2, communication process is a gap that requires us to look into. 4, long-term strategy plan, a big problem. They were able to spot this as a gap for us to look into. The other one to follow is the structural plan, and then the implementation process, skills, training, and knowing. Then I will explain a little bit of it for people to understand. The last one is the solutions that they came up with. I try to refer to the best of the best thinkers of today came to this house, spent almost 2 hours, but if you look into the webinars, they are so rich. And as a result, they were able to come up with solutions. Solutions to the challenges, solutions to the behaviors, and the things we should look into the gaps for the future. What are the solutions? Proactivity and responsibility. This is one thing they identified. Followed. Enforce rules and laws. Followed. Make aware and educate. The last one, integrate and collaborate. These are the solutions identified of the challenges and the behaviors. From the healthcare, mathematics, technology, ethics and morality, and then environment. And then I will take you to, upon they identifying the challenges, as well as the behaviors, the knowledge gaps, and the solutions, my task is to come up with something that can lead all of us or future students, policymakers, to start thinking deeply by looking things from frames. I decided to take up their issues and model it using the fishbone diagram. The fishbone diagram is a cause and effect framework. It allows you to see things that you cannot be able to see qualitatively. That's why models or frameworks are much more practical than having things in writing. What are the things here? If you looked at the frame, it's like a fish. You have the head, and then you have the body of the fish. The head, when the head is mentally ill, there's a likely chance that the fish will be dead. But if the body is sick and the head is mentally fit, there's a likely chance that the fish will survive. That's one way to look at it. Cause and effect relationship. What are the causes here? I took all their challenges and behaviors. I'm repeating myself because learning by repetition is essential. Challenges, behaviors, knowledge gaps, and the solutions, I put it in a model for people to see it in a visual way and be able to sense something completely different. What are the things they were arguing? Process, structure, behavior, culture. Now, this model is saying that if you make an argument from where they were coming, that the process was bad, and as a result, we have a lot of challenges. The process isn't good. That is the reason why we were having a lot of behavioral issues that are negative of our system. Then how can we realign those stuff in order to become an innovative and a creative society? Now, on the process, one of the things we're supposed to do is planning. What is the thing about planning? Planning is about bringing goal and knowledge. Goal plus knowledge is what arrives us to planning. If you look at it, what is absent in many of their arguments? We used to have goals, but no knowledge attached to it. And as a result, our planning is kind of loose. That's why you have what you call loose, tight, loose type of planning. We have goals. Think of this. The National Development Plan has a vision, and the vision is 3 years. Theoretically, you can have a vision that is 3 years. A vision is more than 3 years. And what is a vision? Can be categorized and boxed under goals. Why did it fall short? It fell short because the knowledge wasn't there to actually see it in the way they're supposed to see it. That's
Mr.
why.
Bojang, you have 2 minutes to wrap up.
2, implementation. The implementation plus the planning plus the speed and feedback will acquire us an efficient process to be a creative and innovative society. Process plus the structure. Now, the structure part of it, that has formalization, it has standardization, and it has orderliness. Formalization has to do with rules. Standardization has to do with the unity. And then orderliness has to do with having things in place. Once we have appropriate rules, we have uniformity with those rules, and then they are orderly situated, and then the process is efficient, will certainly lead us to be a creative or innovative Gambia. But that's not the thing. It doesn't all rest on that. The behavioral part of the fish, they came up with the issue that in the Gambia, there are challenges in the human conduct in the way we approach organizations. One was not being on time, tardiness, lateness. So we should be timely. There are strategies around that, how to maneuver that and influence the human behavior. Bring science into the workplace. Clock in, clock out. Citizenship, patriotism, sharing, love for work, high performance teams. Bring high performance teams into the equation. In the agricultural sector, you have a lot of PhDs, a lot of departments, a lot of sectors. Out of all those agricultural sectors, try to have what you call high performance teams. If you want to jumpstart the agricultural sector, bring what you call the 80-20 rule model or high performance teams. Bring the best out of the many. And that will foster and create and influence the type of behavioral work that we need from the people. That's what you call theory wires. They have this high level of work attitude, love for work, joy for work. They can be able to take up any work and be able to do with the agricultural sector of the Gambia within a few duration of time.
Thank you very
Otherwise,
much, Mr. Bojang, for a very, very brilliant and well-structured presentation. I'm afraid we do not have enough time to go through the rest of the presentation. Hopefully, you would have chance to address maybe the remaining aspects of the presentation through the questions that will be raised to you. But I must say I am very, very impressed in the way you have eloquently decoded the webinars that happened here on the GCRPS platform into very interesting reference materials that could be utilized in solving the issues and problems that our society faces. So indeed, very, very brilliant piece of work. And I would also at this point like to emphasize that it is important to leverage and take advantage of the learnings that we extract from our national experiences, but it is also very, very important and critical to extract the learnings from other countries that have gone through similar development paths, or those that have really made significant progress in order to shape our own development story. And in that regard, I have a question for you, Mr. Bojang. In our quest to build a strong innovation culture, what can the Gambia learn from the Japanese continuous improvement philosophy, Kaizen, in order to stimulate growth and development? Over
See,
to you, Mr. Bojang.
Mr. Kadir, that's a very, very interesting question. The Kaizen model,
Mm,
uh,
mm,
even this model, the fishbone diagram emanates from Japan by an organizational theorist. The Kaizen also emanates from Japan. In other words, what we are trying to say is a very much qualitative society. They believe in quality. The Kaizen model, in short, it means change for the good. In other words, change things by using an incremental approach. Now, if you looked at the webinar's argument, I will put your Kaizen model in the webinar's argument. The webinars, as decoded, they are suggesting there need to be a process change in order to arrive us to be a creative society, a structural change in order to be a creative society, a behavioral change, and likewise a cultural change. And using the Kaizen model, which states if you are to embark on a change for the good, use an incremental process of doing. Don't do all at once, one step at a time. And with that approach, you will certainly get there. Let's start with the structure. Formulate rules for the society. Come up with a constitution. Frame up the bigger master plan for our lands. And then by formulating rules, you are capturing the structural argument from the webinars. Start with the structure. Then from there, the Kaizen model is saying, based on the argument from the webinars, to make Gambia a creative society, make efficient the process. And in the process, the webinars were arguing that planning needs to be looked into, implementation needs to be looked into, the speed at which we do things needs to be looked into, as well as the feedback processes. The Kaizen model goes on from structure, then to the process. From the process, look into now the behavior of the humans working within the institution. Do it slowly. Don't do it forcefully. Strategically placed everything. And with that, you will certainly influence the human behavior because you have rules already formulated. The process are being very efficient and the culture is well intact. But how do you get to boost this? Bring trust into the equation. Allow trust to be in the equation. Bring learning into the equation. That's why under culture you have what you call learning and sharing. If learning and sharing is absent, the Kaizen model can never work for the Gambia. And likewise, accountability. And with that,
Mr. Cisse, I think you're mute. Can you please unmute your mic so that we can hear you?
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Bojang. I was just picking up from your point that uh, if you don't have the culture of sharing and trust, Kaizen model would not work for the Gambia. And that is absolutely essential because the GCRPS is playing a critical role in closing that knowledge gap and ensuring that we indeed are sharing. It is a game changer for the country indeed. It is clearly and emphatically on its path to shaping our national development discourse. And I would like to thank you very, very much for this interesting piece. Mr. Sao, please go ahead with your question to Mr. Bojang.
Okay, thank you once again for giving me the floor, Mr. Cisse. Mr. Bojan, thank you for a very brilliant presentation. That was great and quite insightful. So, my question regarding your presentation is this. Now, cognizant of the role, the pivotal role played by research in the formulation of policies, as is evident in evidence based policy making, how can we encourage leaders or managers in the Gambia to embrace research and inform decision making through research as a basis for formulating policies? Meaning, doing away or breaking away from the habit of relying on gut feeling or adaptive experiences from the past, particularly in an environment characterized by apathy or indifference towards research. Because to be honest, the research culture in this country is way below expectations, and most people do not appreciate it. So, how can we break away from that mindset on the basis of what you have shown us here? In other words, how do we embrace evidence based policy making as the way forward? Thank you so much.
Mr. Bojang, you have 1 minute.
Okay, what a brilliant question. So that will fall under the process on the fishbone diagram. It has a you are bringing up what you call the learning argument here. So
Mhm,
you see under the implementation,
mhm,
in order to be able to enhance an evidence-based research uh, into our into our culture,
mhm,
always try whenever you give a task, make sure that it's being evaluated. Get feedback from your evaluation. Hold them to task. By doing so, what you are doing is feedback is generating you ideas, and those ideas are learning processes in order for you to carry on what you're supposed to carry on, either do it better or not doing better. By holding people to task is one way to have that culture in and break that mindset of us not having this evidence-based research into as an attitude or a culture in us. Two, sharing. There is no way you can go about bring teams together and make sure that there is this culture of what you call organizational learning. By organizational learning, you are building in the spirit and culture of knowing. With this spirit and culture of knowing, whenever something is to be done, then people will fall back. I want to know before I start anything. And before doing anything, they would like to know how to do it. Learning, evaluation, sharing, group work, collaboration, and then as well as questioning.
Very
Question.
well put, Mr. Bojang. Thank you very, very much for a very brilliant discussion. And thank you very much, Mr. Sao, for an insightful question. Like I said, these discussions can transcend beyond this webinar into our personal, our daily conversations. So we really appreciate that this continues because they're pertinent issues that affect our personal lives, our organizational lives, and our national lives. So thank you very much. This is the end of the final presentation. So at this point, we'd like to open the floor for question and answers, and we, I'm afraid, can only dedicate 10 minutes to this. So who is following the questions for us from the participants? Any questions so far received? Who is seeing this, please? Okay. There is a question to Mr. Sao. Mr. Sao, please go ahead. This is from
Okay.
Dr. Bojang.
Okay. Thank you. Let me read the question. It says a leadership problem doesn't necessarily mean a leader problem, and recognizing it as such in itself becomes problematic. Mr. Sao's presentation to me was much more on leadership as relates to individual as leader rather than leadership as a whole system, a social process. What is his take on this? Yes, actually, you're right in a sense because it was due to time constraints. But I believe that leadership is seen as a process. And like we said, it's an interaction where the leader influences the followers and vice versa. However, oftentimes, though, our discussions tend to focus a lot on the role of the individual leader who leads a group of followers. But I also want to also make it clear that it is half the story because followership is equally important. And that is something we need to acknowledge and recognize. So, in a sense, yes. But I also believe that if the leader is a problem, then the whole process is also likely to break down. Yes, you may have a leader who is incompetent, for instance, but surrounded by people who are credible, who are knowledgeable. However, without the vision articulated clearly, and without the sense of inspiration to be gained or to be derived. In other words, if the leader is seen as the torch bearer, I believe he is the lead, and his influence on the overall process, which goes beyond just leading and also entails a part of followership, will definitely be a part of the equation. So maybe it's because of time constraints that I could not delve much into the aspect of followership, but I also want to believe that yes, to an extent, your question makes sense, and it's not just about the leader, but also about the leadership process, where we have to look at the leader as the torchbearer, the one who inspires, but then the followers also having a part to play because it's a two-way traffic. Like I said, if one is not functional, then the other will definitely run into problems. I hope that
Thank you
answers
very
the
much. Thank
question.
you very much, Mr. Sao, for that response. We're happy to take another question. Uh, we have another participant, Adam Asao, um, with a question there directed to Mr. Bojang. Okay, that's a comment. Thank you very much, Mr.
Okay,
Bojang.
thank you.
Planning is key to meet our goals in life. Indeed. Mr. Mike Demba. Mr. Mike Demba has a question for Mr. Sao. Mr. Sao, you have 1 minute to address this question.
Okay, let me look at the question. Mr. Sao, in Africa, more than anywhere else, the difference that just one leader could make is much greater, more impactful. He attributes this to Africa having weak institutions like the judiciary, constitution, civil societies, and so forth. He further added that when societies have strong institutions, the damage, if any, that a leader can make is limited. Excuse me, is limited. But we when we have weak institutions, one leader can make or break an entire nation. What's your opinion on his statement? Okay, it's limited when we have weak institutions, one leader. Yes, actually, I think again this I would like to make reference to what Barack Obama said. I guess it was on one of his trips to Africa where he buttressed on the fact that Africa needs not strong leaders but strong institutions. And I think even the bureaucratic system we have in place strives to achieve this, that yes, leaders come and go, but the institutions we build are meant to stay for posterity. And that was why during my presentation, I made mention of the fact that we should start seeing our institutions as a going concern, one that will live long after we are gone. So building structures may have to take a lot of sacrifice, but definitely if we build structures that will hold people accountable, if we build structures that will hold them responsible, then I believe the chances or the likelihood of a single leader to be able to break all institutions without any of these checks and balances is very limited. Take a typical example of the US. Donald Trump came in, and with all his buts, he had challenges. I mean, looking at his own, actions, you realize that if probably, perhaps, if America didn't have strong institutions, he could have done a lot of damage within those 4 years. But yes, we had strong institutions, we had checks and balances that will hold him to account anytime the need arises. So I quite agree with the point that yes, what we need in Africa most of the time is strong institutions. And the fact that leaders can break or make institutions, yes, individually is also something that can happen. But when those institutions are built, around structures that are formidable, around structures that will hold people accountable for their actions, I believe the likelihood for such actions are going to be very much limited.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sao. And I would like to also thank our participants online for their wonderful comments and for recognizing the great job being done by our panelists today. The likes of Sira Jao, Mike Demba, Flora Richards Jamme, Adam Asaho, and so on, Omar Sao. Thank you all very much for your comments. Any final questions? Okay. At this point, we would like to once again thank everyone that participated in this webinar, from our panelists to our introducer to the organizers behind the scene and to the participants that have been with us all along the journey. We thank you all for that, definitely. We want to emphasize that indeed GCRPS is making a great stride in national and personal and organizational development efforts. And for me, um, any development initiative, whether at personal, institutional, or national level, or roadmap or strategic direction, that ignores what is being said in GCRPS webinars, then I would say that is not very serious, because indeed very, very pertinent issues are being raised here. So once again, thank you all very much. At this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Silla Konate to provide closing remarks for this webinar. Mr. Konate, please go ahead. We are sorry to not that we are not able to address all the questions, but this discussion continues beyond here. Mr. Konate, please proceed.
Thank you very much, Abdul Kadri, the moderator, distinguished panelists, participants. I'm very much delighted this evening, deeply touched and honored to be associated with such a great program organized by some very distinguished, hardworking, talented, patriotic, and great-minded people of our beloved Gambia. The initiative by GCPRS to organize such a webinar on a very, very important and relevant topical issue needs serious commendation and appreciation. The theme of the webinar is so apt, well chosen, and very highly relevant for our institutional leaders, managers, policymakers, students, leaderships of our households, and in our daily social interactions. The importance of the theme discussed today cannot be overemphasized. The establishment of this center, GCRPS, is very timely, and its interventions and the activities that they organize from inception, such as these webinars, will to a large extent benefit the country at large. Policymakers, heads of institutions, students, university and college lecturers, heads of communities and households all have a great benefit to derive from this webinar. Breaking away from established habits, especially those that are highly dysfunctional, unproductive, and generating new mindsets, will undoubtedly lead to serious and more beneficial transformation in our pursuit of national development. Kudos to GCRPS. Moderator, Mr. Abdul Kadir Sise, please permit me to register my profound satisfaction and appreciation with the level of general organization, effective communication, dedication, and hard work that went into the implementation of this program. We all bear witness to it. The dedication, passion, and commitment of the staff are top-notch. I will not do justice if I do not singularly recognize the tremendous sacrifice, dedication, and role played by Mr. Salu Bojang. He was the one I was, talking with. He is an asset to GCRPS. I appreciate his unwavering dedication to duty, persistence, pragmatism, and friendliness. And I'm very much sure that with what I have seen today, this applies to all other members of this center. To our great and distinguished panelists, the likes of Fat Sengay, Mr. Yaya Sao, my very own brother, Mr. Langsanyang, and Mr. Saru Bojang, and the moderator himself. I want to seize this opportunity to thank you so much for your hard work. You have taken a very difficult and challenging assignment. Not everybody can take this up. The panelists, by all standards, have been very impressive, and they did a very good job and deserve an upload. The topics given to them for presentation were thoroughly and extensively researched and very well presented. To the rest of the audience, I wish to express my profound appreciation for your audience. You have sacrificed precious time for this webinar, and you gave it the flavor that it seriously needed. Bravo to all of you. Finally, my message to GCRPS is to keep up this great work, continue to do a great deal of marketing, and keep organizing such important webinars. I thank you all and best of luck.
Thank you very much, Mr. Konate. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.